Welcome back to an episode of Ready, Set, Live, episode 19. Today we get to discuss a little bit of the competitive side of Lorcana, a little bit of the casual side of Lorcana, and a little bit of news to us.
Ready, set, draw!
Welcome in.
Welcome back, Tyler.
Dude,
Welcome back.
it's been so long. I feel like almost every single podcast that we've done recently, it's been like,
Look,
dude, it's been so long.
Okay.
But this time, there was reasons.
There are
Obviously,
reasons.
the holidays.
I will say it's unfair to like really turn the crank on the content intermittency just because a little bit of unique things have happened.
Yeah.
In my life especially, but also
Definitely not my life.
It was Thanksgiving.
Yep.
It was Christmas.
Yep.
It was New Year's.
Yep.
It was, as a high school teacher, I was starting back to school. And then my birthday came up. Like there was a lot of like family events that came up and were like a thing I needed to do in the weekend.
Yeah. And
it-
as a salesperson, I
Yeah.
got nothing. I've got a job.
yeah, but it takes a village to produce this content that
It
we
does.
love.
You know
And-
what also takes a village?
What?
Raising a kid.
Oh, speaking of, one of the other special events in my life, for those of you who do not follow us on Twitter,
Which you should.
for one, I highly recommend you follow us on Twitter.
100%.
Even if you don't, or X. I don't know if calling
formerly
it,
known as
I don't
Twitter?
know if Elon figures out that I called it Twitter, is he going to shadow ban me?
I have no idea. But if Elon does anything, awesome. I kind of want to meet the guy.
Well, I'll say this. We keep more conversation going on that platform just because it's more personal. It's a little easier to have a conversation there than in the YouTube comments.
For sure.
But that being said, we still like to look at the YouTube comments. Like it's still something we enjoy. But if you were on Twitter, you would have seen a little bit earlier, like a couple weeks ago, I posted a life update. And it was one of the reasons that I have slowed down my approach to content recently. And it is that I am with child.
Yes. I'm going to be a godfather or an uncle. It doesn't matter. I love titles.
We have a child. It is due in the spring. And I am pumped about it. One little callback. In our card creation challenge episode, I did not know it at the time. That was like back in June or so that we made that episode. It was like episode 3, I think, of the podcast. One of my submissions to our custom card challenge was Mufasa Brave Father. And I made a comment of like, I hope to be a dad one day. I would want to be a dad like Mufasa. And I'm like, yes.
He got there,
I get to
ladies and
check it
gentlemen.
off my bingo
He got
card.
there.
Now, I still got to be like Mufasa. So I got to get some whiskers.
I'm going to need you to
deeper
not
voice.
die.
I got you. I'll do my best.
Because I don't know where Jeffrey's at this point in his life.
Well,
because
he'll be there.
if he
That's brother, by the way.
yes,
Okay, let's get to the
Yes.
stuff. Enough of us. More
back
about
to
you.
the whole point of why we're here.
Yes,
Lorcana.
we have a little bit of a news situation in our show because we know that with the pre-recorded nature of our show, with the time it takes to produce the content and get it to you in a reasonable amount of time, sometimes things that are news while we cover it on the show, they're not news by the time they reach you.
Yeah.
So we're going to call our segments for news to us. And the first bit of news to us is that we have had an onslaught of content creator card reveals.
Holy cow.
More to come, too. There have been more today as of the time of recording. More are coming this week, and I am thrilled.
You know what? Call back to our own.
Oh, we got
Go
one.
and check it out.
And yes,
which
by
by the
now-
way,
That's why he's wearing a
that's why
pirate
I'm wearing the hat. If you know, you know.
Yeah, okay. Please go watch that card reveal we got. I'll go ahead and let you know it was a steel action called
it was
Baboom. We had a blast, pun intended, making it, and we had a fun skit planned for the video.
yeah.
It was really fun to execute.
great. It was
We're trying to
absolutely
step
hilarious.
up the content spoiler game.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? Last time we had a podcast episode and just kind of started the show with it. This time we like a dedicated video for it.
We wanted you guys to know and understand that when we get card reveals, we don't get them very often. This is only our second one. We want you guys to know that it is a dedicated thing. We are excited to bring that news to you guys.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So
sorry about that.
For sure, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. We had a good laugh doing it. And there's good card discussion about it after the skit. So
Yeah. So I just want to highlight that it's very important to us to like make sure that we can like deliver whenever we get a card like that. We want to produce something cool. And I'll also say that like personally, when we got to reveal Teeth and Ambitions, I got a play set of foil Teeth and Ambitions because it was like a highlight moment for me.
I still don't have a foil set.
It's gonna be cheaper to get a foil play set of Baboom because it's a common.
Yeah, it's common. Yeah.
But I remember how special that was to me to get to do that and how fortunate we were. Like I don't take it for granted that we got a card to reveal. And it's
Should we
cool.
call him back and see if we can get another one?
Oh.
Just be slightly greedy.
Maybe. The feeling I had though, I am so happy for all these other content creators that get to see it because I see people who are putting in the work, who are making their first content. They might not be super confident in it, but they're passionate. Yeah. And they're getting rewarded with like that kind of validation, you know, from Ravensburger. So
we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I'm very happy for y'all, everyone who's gotten content creator reveals. But anyone who hasn't yet, keep it up. Like keep on making the stuff. People notice you whether you realize it or not. Just keep on being passionate about it and putting your products out there because you never know when you are going to have someone watch it, get stuck to it, word of mouth, spread it to a friend, and it's something that can blow up out of nowhere. You know, even if it's a small explosion, it's still a baboom. You know, so it's still legit.
Yeah, it is. And also for every content creator out there, and just from us, don't hesitate to just ask. Like that's really kind of the whole reason.
Is no. Yeah. Or I play the goat for the win. That's worse than no.
Yeah.
That's
because he's the goat.
That's a meme. I'll throw the meme up on the screen. I got it. For those of you who are audio listeners, the whole joke of like, just ask. The worst she can say is no. And then someone shows like, no, the worst that she can say is, and I play goat for the win.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many games now that has ended my games. So it's fun.
But yes, the worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
So these card reveals, we have picked a handful of them that we kind of want to show, like 3 each. That it's not like we think these cards are the best cards, but of the ones we know so far,
these are definitely our favorites.
They're the ones that I'm like, very interesting.
We're gonna have some fun.
Taps chin for audio listeners. So I'll say there's one card in particular that's been revealed so far
that we both
adore.
We're on board.
And I was going to argue with Tyler on who got the right to, you know, discuss it more main characterly, but I'm going to let you read it. Okay, because it is one of your favorite Disney characters.
Literally, if anybody...
But it's my favorite ink color.
It's, okay, so it's his favorite ink color. It's my favorite movie.
And it's both of one of our favorite ability things to do in the game.
Oh, yeah. So the card that we're talking about is none other than Jim Hawkins. The 5-drop inkable Jim Hawkins. He is a space traveler. He's a 4/4 storyborn hero. As he should be. He quests for 2, and he's got 2 abilities, both of which are really good. First ability, this is it. When you play this character, you may play a location with cost 4 or less for free. But what's the cost?
Just play
free.
Just play him. You get a free location.
Free. And then second ability is Take the Helm. Whenever you play a location, this character may move there for free. You know what I'm noticing about Jim Hawkins? He likes the word free.
It's something that anytime you put the words for free on a card, you have to like take a double take. You're like, what am I getting?
And
pretty sweet.
The flavor text, for those who have watched the movie,
it's been a while for me.
Just know that the moment that they're talking about is a super emotional moment. I don't cry too often in movies. This moment as an adult makes me cry because John Silver is the father figure to Jim Hawkins, but he doesn't have a dad. So the flavor text is, you're going to rattle the stars you are. And it literally says John Silver. And it's the moment where he's like, Jim just found out that the line wasn't secured. For those of you who know, Mr. Scroop is a jerk. But he finds out that the line wasn't secured. He's beating himself up about it. And Silver is like taking him under his wing. It's like, don't let this moment like squander what you've learned and how much you've grown over the course of the trip that you've been on, this journey that you're going on. You're gonna rattle the stars you are.
Who's the illustrator?
The illustrator, the person who has created this wonderful masterwork piece of art, is Veronica Di Lorenzo.
Sweet.
And then accompanied by Livio. Oh gosh, I don't want to butcher a last name. I think it's Cassiatoro.
I trust you.
Cassiatoro.
Okay. I just got to get those artist credits out there. We got to let the artists,
because you guys are awesome.
You guys are great. And also, I'll admit, I don't know if it's a common thing with legendaries, but the art of the ship extends into the text box a little bit. Like it's like it almost has a transparentness to it, which is super cool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's always been the case for every legendary. I know Floodborns have different text boxes because the ink spills over a little bit, but I need to find another legendary and see if the text box changes like that, because oh my gosh, that gave the card so much depth.
Yeah, it gave it a very dynamic feel, and I'm super for it.
So while you're looking up, just see if what I said is true.
I'm double checking.
I want to speak on the effects of the card for playing, and it kind of brings up the issue of locations. And it's that so far we haven't seen a ton of locations that are like super impactful right now.
Yeah.
Did you find out?
So Snow White from set 2 actually does spill over. If you look super close to it, it does have a bit of a spillover. So
something I'm noticing for the first time.
Yeah, we're all learning. Namari doesn't.
Dang, man. Okay. Well, enough bashing on Namari. Let's go. So for the card being played, we need to know if locations that are 4 cost or less are going to be like, man, I want to play that.
Yeah, it's got to be bonkers.
But Jim Hawkins has 2 lore.
Yes.
So for a pretty good on-rate character, I can be convinced to play a pretty good location for free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
Not only that, even if the location has like, it costs 3 to move here, Jim Hawkins moves there for free.
I would also like to point out that if they release an amber or even a ruby, but either color, if they release an amber or a ruby location that's just absolutely bonkers at 4, I'm 100% playing a just-in-time version of the deck because you can play Jim Hawkins
just in time. Jim Hawkins. Then it's a little magical, but I mean, hey, it's Disney.
I mean, if you're playing for that, like the whole like purpose of the deck is to play around that notion, that's gross.
So, as far which ability do you think is more important? That he moves there for free because it's on play, right?
Yeah.
So whenever you play whenever you play a location, he can move there. So he can move back and forth from other locations over and over again if you're playing more. Do you think that's a more important ability? Just because we may be wrong when the game comes out, but like, do you think that's more important, or do you think that playing a free location is more important?
I think playing the free location is going to have massive ramifications because there's some really great locations that are out that are just like, oh, that's a problem.
I just feel like I know when
Tiana.
Tiana's Palace is good.
It's really good.
But I worry that even if I had a card right now that said, when you play this character, play an item from your hand for free, there's a lot of good items. A lot of items that you're like, I'll put that in my deck. I'll put that in my deck. You can find like 16, 20 items to put in your deck. Right now, I'm a little concerned that we know more locations are coming, but I'm more concerned that like the locations we see now, I wonder how many locations you can put in your deck that you're happy about it. You know what I mean?
They would have to give you lore.
Yeah, like and at least half of them are, half of your card pool you can choose from are going to be Ruby locations. Yeah. So we got to hope for good Ruby locations. We've only seen one, and it was just Agrabah. It's just a vanilla, no abilities location.
I hadn't seen that one yet.
I'll show you later. Okay. It's a vanilla. Right? Okay. So it's basically the common location.
So it's basically like the very first one that they showed.
Like a Forbidden Mountain kind. I think, Mountain. But it's Agrabah might have 2 lore, not 1, but it's a little more expensive to play than that. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but
we'll check it out.
Yeah. I think the ability to move from location to location is pretty important. More important than the free location, personally. It
depends on how good moving to locations is going to be.
Well, yeah, it's the fact that we've seen locations that say, if you have a character here, get this bonus.
Yeah.
And if you have a character here that gets banished, put it in your inkwell. If you have characters here, get Warden Evasive. And like, it feels like the tuning they have for the power level of location seems to be like the cost to move there.
Yeah.
And so I feel like having like, oh, you know what? I would really like my Jim Hawkins to have Ward. Play Fang.
Boop.
Move him over. It's pretty sweet.
Really good.
So I really
Just
like
has two really good abilities.
Yeah.
Let's just flat out say it.
Yeah.
He is a really the fact that he is legendary makes complete sense.
Yeah.
It's-
We both love Jim Hawkins.
Oh,
but we
for
have more
sure.
cards to discuss.
Yes, we do.
So do you want to give me your first one?
Okay, so the first one that I've got is Mr. Pluto. The Pluto
This is a double.
Yeah, it's a double because both of them are freaking fantastic. So Pluto, I gotta find him first. So the Pluto 1-drop and the Pluto shift form.
Okay.
Pluto 1-drop.
Hit us with both.
So the Pluto 1-drop is an uninkable 0/2 Pluto. What is it? Is it a Pluto friendly pooch? Okay. He's a storyborn ally. They still need to do something with ally. I don't know what you're gonna do, Ravensburger, but it better be good. His ability is Good Dog. You exert it. You pay 1 less for the next character you play this turn, and he quests for 1 lore. Okay, that's great. Not questing with this character.
I personally love Lantern on a stick. I love that.
I love Lantern on a body, like something that
on a stick.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this it's so good.
Yeah.
Like
Character for your character decks.
generically 1-drop, really good. Like it's a good card.
It's vulnerable. It's very vulnerable.
is.
But I would say like so is the Cinderella ball gown with the Singer 3.
Yeah.
That's very vulnerable, but it does something that's very good. And we've seen a lot of characters that are very vulnerable but do very powerful things, and it hasn't stopped them from being put in decks.
Yep.
You know, vulnerability comes at a price or comes with benefits.
Yeah.
And those benefits are usually really strong. So what's the shift form?
The shift form, oh my goodness. The shift form is a 7-drop inkable, as it should be. It is Pluto Determined Defender. He is a 3/8 Floodborn ally. He has shift 5. Doesn't matter because his little buddy is going to make him cheaper. He's got Bodyguard, which is awesome. He quests for 2. I'm loving these bodyguards that are coming out
That are questing for
that
higher.
have higher questing values. Like, we got shafted with Simba.
Yeah.
Because 2-drop, Bodyguard, 1 lore, needed to be more. But his ability is called Guard Dog. At the start of your turn, remove up to 3 damage from this character.
That's
so
very good.
Because if he lasts, he's automatically healing.
Yeah.
And you can build a certain type of deck around this where you can play the Rapunzel shift form from set 2.
Yeah.
And
Get card draw.
Just automatically get card draw from a card healing itself, and you don't have to pay anything to do it.
Yeah. All
It
you have
just
to do is just get
happens.
damage on him somehow.
Yeah.
By using him, maybe.
Yeah. Like, oh, well, I'm going to use him.
It's pretty crazy that it does it on its own. I'll say this. This card fits so well into what Amber is already wanting to do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like I already am incentivized to play the lower Pluto because I already like Lantern.
Yeah.
You know, I already like cost reduction. So if I'm going ahead and playing that Pluto, why not play a 3/8 bodyguard that I can cheapen and play earlier than what it's actually shifted?
Yeah.
Like we already saw that Lantern plus Stitch Rockstar was like a wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That morphs a game.
It's the same thing, except
Yeah.
better because
Well, it's not drawing you cards. Like we can
It's
argue
not.
better or not,
Yeah.
but like the stats that you have to get through to get rid of him is insane.
Yeah,
because
it's
you
a
can't
body.
you can't chip him down over turns because
He
it's
just heals
rehealing.
himself.
So it's really cool. If you can find synergies for the healing, I think that's icing on the cake. But very impressed with Pluto. And I don't want to forget, we just talked about all the content creators getting reveals. This was revealed by Citizens of Lorcana.
We love you
All right?
guys.
There's your flowers, guys. We appreciate you. And they got to reveal both of those cards, which is pretty sweet.
Holy cow.
A lot of the creators got 2 cards. It was pretty sweet. All right.
So what you're telling me is we do need to ask.
I'm not asking. I'm happy with what I got.
Fine.
I'm full. Okay.
You can be full. That's fine.
The next card that we're going to discuss is one that has a lot of hot takes around it right now. I wouldn't, maybe not hot takes, that's not the right word. The discourse around this card is that it's like the here we go card, kind of like Goat was in set 2. And it is the song, the Amethyst song, The Boss is on a Roll. It is a 3-cost inkable action song. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Put any number of them on the top or bottom of the deck, or of your deck, in any order. And then if that wasn't enough, gain 1 lore. The artist is Coney. And I love the flavor text of this card. It's one of my favorite lines in that song. Go ahead, make your choice. I love it. So I want to temper my expectations with this card. I was not a non-believer of Goat. Anthony suggested whenever we were recording, and Anthony's right here in the studio. You can shake your head no or yes, Anthony, and I'll relay it to the audience. Anthony was a firm believer in Bounce, but I was not a believer in Bounce when it was first initially getting revealed.
This is the reason why he was wrong.
Yeah. Then we got Goat and Rabbit, and I was like, oh, wow. Now we have win conditions here.
Yeah.
This is kind of scary, but I'm going to temper my expectations and see if Goat's a problem. Fast forward to today.
Goat's a problem.
Goat's a problem. So I love the flavor of Goat. I love the mechanic of like returning it to your hand, maximizing value. It feels really cool. I think it's because no other inks have something quite as strong. So now anyone who's trying to build a really strong focused deck, they get kind of pigeonholed into like, you need to play Ruby Amethyst. And it's because everybody is seeing Goat end games that makes you feel more like Goat. Like people build animosity towards like the repetitive things, you get tired of it. Until
you have all of them get a whole new world out of your hand.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later. That's a beautiful moment. Anyways.
Still really salty about that one.
The Boss is on a Roll is one of those cards like it is surprise instantaneous lore. It can stack the top of your deck and make it where if you were going to draw poorly, you aren't anymore. And it's a song. So you can weave it in. Maybe give up, if you had something that quests for 2, give up 1 of that lore and just get 1 instead for playing this card.
Yeah.
And use the turn to just, like Maleficent Sorceress, if she sings it, she was going to get 1 lore from questing anyways.
Yeah.
So sing this. Maybe get the lore from this, and then all of a sudden make sure that whatever I draw next turn is the perfect, most optimal card I could have at the top 5. And if you don't like the top 5, if you don't want any of them, put them on the bottom.
All the bottom.
It's ridiculous. Like, this card is so good, but I don't want to say it's bad for the game yet, because
I don't think that
because I think that this card is not like one of those things that's like, oh my gosh, this is going to take the deck that's already the best and just cement it there, because we don't know half the set. And if enough
there's a lot of cards still left to get. So
if they come out with 1 card in a different ink than Ruby or Amethyst that says your opponent cannot return cards to their hand or something,
it's going to be in green.
Yeah,
it's going to be in green.
That completely changes the way we see the game. Like it's on a turn like that. And I'm excited from this card's perspective on just the capabilities and possibilities of like Amethyst got another good song.
Yeah.
So now maybe, just maybe, we can play some Amber Amethyst song decks. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
If you can kind of branch out and do something different. So you have friends on the other side. You have the bosses on a roll. You have Reflection if you really like that.
Dude, there's so
good
many
Amber songs. Like
there's so many 3-drops though. Like when you look at
but it's make an aggressive deck then,
That's true.
Just make a faster song deck.
Yeah.
That's all it would have to be. It's just good.
Yeah.
I think it's just good.
It is.
I just really am excited about what this card can do. I'm terrified of the possible future. I'm a little bit concerned, but I would say that the fear that I see in other content creators and other people who were talking about the game in general, I may not be where they are. I may not be where you are at home if you're evaluating this card and you're just shaking in your boots, but it might also be because I don't play as much as you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe I'm just wrong and I should be terrified. Maybe future Jacob's going to come back right now and tell me that the apocalypse began because the bosses on a roll wasn't banned. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? But
the apocalypse happened because the boss was on a roll.
Jacob from the future, show up right now if it's true. We're safe, folks. He didn't come.
I swear, if that door opens in the next 5 minutes, we're all done.
All right. So let's have your next card.
Okay.
I think we can move on. The boss is on a roll.
Yeah, so let him cook. Let him cook. So I had a different card in mind. From what we have written down, I am going in a different direction.
What was the card you were going to discuss?
So the card that I was going to discuss was the Queen of Hearts in Amber.
What? No, what? You're going to...
That was the card that I was going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a different card.
Oh.
We're going to talk about Morph.
Oh, this is a beautiful decision. That's a good decision.
This is such a good card that it's going to be in every single, it's going to be in every single shift deck.
It's cemented to me that Floodborns are now, it's almost exclusively an Emerald thing.
Yeah.
You're going to make sure you have it because he's too good to not put with your Floodborns.
Funny enough, he is a 2-drop. He is a 2-drop inkable character, is Morph Space Goo, because he's a Morph. He's a 2/1 Storyborn ally alien. He has Mimicry. You may play any character with Shift on this character as if the character had any name. And he also quests for 1 because the 1 doesn't matter.
You're never going to exert this guy until you've achieved
jiggle-headed
Lorcana.
blob of mischief.
Who's the artist?
The artist is Alan Batson.
Okay.
Wait, like Billy Batson?
Well, shout out to Alan.
Shazam!
Looks great.
It looks freaking phenomenal. He did a great job.
Let's talk about the kind of decks this could beef up.
Every single Floodborn deck in the history of Floodborn decks.
I've heard, I have not played this deck myself, but I have heard Jonty from the Inkwell discuss a Floodborn steel emerald discard Floodborn kind of strategy.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like it's insanely crazy good, but it seems like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
shout out to Jonty.
Yeah, it uses Bucky to force discard whenever you play a Floodborn.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of good Floodborns in that color, or in that color combo. And I think Morph just slides right in like butter.
It
goo.
automatically makes it better.
Yeah. It's just consistency up the wazoo for all of the Floodborn targets you want.
Because
pretty sweet.
So this kind of comes back to the conversation that we had a long time ago about Bell. Like the shift form Bell that's
you need a 1-drop Bell to make it really, really strong.
Or a 2-drop.
Or a 2-drop.
And
this is your 2-drop.
And we got a 3. Mm-hmm. Well, this is the 2-drop Bell.
Yeah, pretty much.
This cements being able to just be like, okay, I want to be able to shift onto or I want to be able to shift onto something using, or I want to shift Bell turn 3. Well, I got Morph. I can shift turn 3.
I also want to mention that because there are so many viable Floodborn Emerald cards, not just any other ink color.
Yeah.
There's so many good Floodborn cards across the entire game. But you're usually going to know what your opponent's playing by around that turn. You'll see what they ink and stuff. But just in Emerald, there are a lot of good Floodborn characters.
Oh, yeah.
And what's cool about Morph is, unlike the other Floodborn characters, like I'll kick you an example. When you play against the Amber Steel deck and you see a turn 1 queen, what are you immediately preparing for? You're preparing for them to sing a 5-cost song. You're preparing for them to quest for 2 next turn.
I feel like this is a conversation that we need to have later because I'm going to be upset about it.
When you see someone play a turn 1 Stitch or a turn 1, what's another thing? Turn 1, a card that has a
turn 2 Aladdin.
A turn 2 Aladdin. Okay. If you see stuff like that, your brain goes, I need to prepare for the shift.
Yep.
I need to prepare for it. And you automatically start preparing. So you're technically telegraphing a play.
Yeah.
You know, with Morph, I hate to steal your line here, but it could be anything.
Could have been a boat.
It could even be a boat. So like there is some value to not telegraphing your Morph, right? You're not telegraphing what you're shifting into. So it honestly might have a bigger target on its back for that reason.
Yeah.
But also you could bait out removal with that. Even if you don't have a Floodborn in your hand, you could be like, obviously unless I draw one, I'm not going to shift into anything. But I guarantee I would rather play a turn 2 Morph, force you to ba-boom it.
Yeah, to have an answer.
Have an answer, or maybe you're just threatening shifting onto something crazy and questing immediately with it to get a cool ability. But there's like So many possibilities. So thank you for bringing that up.
Possibilities are endless.
I would have been kicking myself if we didn't talk about more today.
So the more that I looked at the list, I was like, man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Oh my goodness, we got to talk about that. Yeah. So Morph.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I don't remember who was the reveal for Morph. I think it honestly may have been just Disney Lorcana revealing that. I can't say for certain. I'm sorry if it was your card and we forgot. It's been a little bit.
Get in the comments.
Rebecca from the Lorcana Illuminary, mostly Instagram, but also on Twitter. That content creator revealed one of the coolest, that's how we're going to achieve the strategy of this set more efficiently. And it is a one-cost action that's inkable called Voyage.
This is a good card, ladies and gentlemen.
You can just move up to 2 characters of yours to the same location for free. For 1 ink, you're immediately, from what we've seen, the highest cost to move a character somewhere is 2, as of right now.
Okay.
But if it got higher than that, and they turned that knob all the way up to 11, it just gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
The more expensive it is to move something. Yeah, it gets to a point where maybe if you're playing that location with a 5 to move their cost, you wouldn't want to play it in your deck.
So
but
this kind of feels very much like our Tremaine argument, back when it was first starting.
Yeah.
But it's a better Tremaine argument.
Yeah. Because this card's actually good.
Yeah.
this card's this card isn't 6 cost uninkable. That's the thing. But
because Tremaine is trash.
Paying just 1 to move 2 characters to something that costs 1 to move there, you still save an ink. You paid a card for it, which is notable. But if you have to pay 2 to move somewhere, like Fang, then all of a sudden now I'm saving 3 ink when I play this. And I'm getting that free move. So if it's something that gets a benefit from moving, I get a benefit there too. So even playing the card, it's like I got that effect for free. And then if you ever have something, if you ever have a play where let's say you really want to play Tiana's Palace, but you don't want to play it on 3 because you can't move someone there immediately. But now you're like, okay, I could say Voyage and Tiana's Palace for turn 4. And then I can go ahead and play a 1-drop and a 2-drop, maybe a 1-drop and another something. You have 2 characters out by turn 4, right? And then turn 4 starts. Now you play Tiana's Palace, play Voyage, immediately have there, and they can't be challenged. That's pretty sweet. You can quest with them safely.
Pretty nice.
It's pretty nice. This card opens up a lot of plays. The number one reason I wanted to bring it up here, I've been waiting for a new personality for Ruby to have, other than Be Prepared. Be Prepared is still definitely on the table, metaphorically and literally. But the fact that Ruby is looking like the location synergy, move there frequently color,
because it's a movement style. It's
aggressive, it's adventurous.
It's a super aggressive color in general. And there's big because going back to cards that came out in set 2, like Shirkan and Scar, those cards are very much that. When I think something that moves quickly, I think Ruby, because the whole point is I'm challenging my opponent to do something about me. Yeah. And this really, that speaks to that.
It speaks to it for sure. All right, we got to get a move on. Let's get your last card.
Okay.
And I will get to my last card after.
My last card should be no surprise to anyone, because we're going to be talking about Map to Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet again.
Yeah. Because
Morph's Treasure Planet, right?
Morph is Treasure.
Wait,
I did 3.
I thought he was Atlantis. I blend those movies together so hard in my head.
But that's because they came out very, very close to each other. So Map of Treasure Planet is a freaking great card. It is a 3-drop. It's a 3-drop inkable. It's an item. Its ability is Key to the Portal. You may exert this. You pay 1 less for the next location you play this turn. Already working really well with our boy. And then its second ability says Show the Way. You pay 1 less to move your characters to a location. Yeah, it's pretty good.
The one thing that concerns me about this is other reveals we've seen so far. We've seen Rise of the Titans, which banishes locations. That's in Steel.
Yeah.
Baboom does damage to locations. That's in steel.
Yep.
Along Came Zeus does damage to characters or locations. That's in steel.
Yep.
It seems like it seems. You're saying steams at the same time I say seems, and it's making me even more tripped up. It seems.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for saying my words.
You're welcome.
Like steel is the color that wants to actively banish locations the easiest. So it seems weird to me that
Steel's gonna have the most bonker location.
Well, it just really is weird to me that like the card that makes it more efficient to move on an item is steel for locations.
I'm telling you, Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet is going to be a steal.
It just feels like this should have been a sapphire or a ruby card to me because it's like
I technically agree with you, but at the same time, I'm telling you, Treasure Planet is going to be a steal.
We can open up location synergy to more colors, but I was just saying that like easy moving and cheaper costed seems like, wait, steel wants to do productive things? It's not just destroying things all over the place.
I break everything.
It's weird.
I break everything. I go home.
Yeah, I would say this card is completely dependent on the quality of steel locations. Like completely dependent.
I'm already going to just go ahead and say that Treasure Planet is probably going to be legendary, and it's going to be the best location in the game.
My God, that would be sweet.
I'm just going to go ahead.
That would be sweet.
That's my hot take. And we're not even doing hot takes.
If we get legendary locations, that opens up a can of like, we can do anything.
Yes, we can.
And because the characters that are legendary are typically effects that you're like, whoa, you do what?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're terrible. Sometimes they're way overhyped.
Yeah. Gantu, 100%.
That wasn't
Absolute
overhyped.
trash.
That was under over discussed. What I'm talking about is like Alice.
As heck.
Alice gives all your other stuff support.
Yeah.
And then she quests for big stuff. You know, Belle, extra ink, quest for big stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. But
it hasn't
really
as being
come
like
to
really
fruition.
good.
Yeah. Belle gets played, but Alice is still like on the fringe of like, do you really need to? Snow White, getting stuff from your discard. Do you really want to do that? You know, it's uninkable. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that great.
For
it's just
the people
unique.
that like recursion, like that's something that immediately like, oh, okay, that's really cool. But other than that, like it doesn't really see play.
Well, we're getting sidetracked. I want to get this last card in.
Go for it.
This is not a flashy card. It was revealed. Map of Treasure Planet, by the way, was revealed by the Forbidden Mountain.
You guys are awesome.
And then the last card that we had revealed or that I chose to put on the list, was revealed by the podcast, Live, Laugh, Lorcana. Love the show. It is a 4-cost character in steel. It's inkable. It is Lythos, Rock Titan, a Storyborn Titan.
Zeus.
4 strength, 1 willpower, 1 lore, with resist +2, and it has the ability Stone Skin. Exert, chosen character gains resist +2 this turn.
So what you're telling me is it's just a better version of Mouse Armor.
Pretty much.
On a body.
Pretty much. And the flavor text is Cross Zeus. Yes. And the artist is Alice Pisani, which has some wonderful art pieces. I learned this last night whenever John T. and Brandon got to reveal Helga from Treasured Planet as well, right? Helga's from Atlantis.
That's Atlantis, bud.
Sorry. I'm telling you they blend. Anyways, Atlantis, they revealed 2 Helgas. And the artist for that Dreamborn Helga was Alice Pisani. If you look at Tyler at the artist Alice Pisani, she has wonderful art pieces.
You are really good. I like it.
Let's talk about the card though.
Yes.
Lythos, I put it on my list. You may be thinking like, this is like not that flashy of a card, Jacob. It's an uncommon. Why is it here?
So what?
I tell you, I have now played plenty of games against resist as a feature, and that ability is so good. And
it's a pain.
The fact that it's a 4/1 doesn't matter when it's resist +2. It effectively has
it's
a 4/3. But the ability to give other things resist +2 makes so many trades happen favorably.
And you can give it +2.
Yeah, you can technically you really don't need that, I guess, unless you had like an action that's like everything takes 4 damage, then I guess you could save it, you know? But you could technically, if there was like a sweeper that was like everything takes 2, then like you could give something else that you have +2.
Yep.
And then the sweeper could go off and your things would be safe. But either way, cool flavor. It's a 2-headed rock giant.
Yes, it is.
Gives resist +2 to something else. It has it. Having resist +2 makes this thing trade so favorably, and it survives so much steel removal. It's just going to be very annoying to deal with. And I think there's just having that, even if it's questing for 1, being able to deal 4 damage back to something means that if they typically have something that can chew through that and get 3 strength to go into your resist 2, 1 willpower, your 4 strength is probably going to hit back and banish whatever's hitting you more often than not. So I'm a big fan of Lythos. The other Titan that was revealed was Hydros. It's a worse Elsa.
It's a much worse Elsa.
Yeah, so we're not really going to talk about that. But we do.
I guess it's not that much worse. It's actually it quests for 2. So
but it gets removed so much easier than Elsa does.
That's fair.
Having that 3, it's just way bigger deal.
2-3 is a big deal.
Now, the last thing we want to discuss in the News to Us segment is that stock has arrived. The numbers for set 3 look very good.
Yeah.
For our stores.
Very, very promising.
The availability of the game, I don't know about reprints. Nobody really knows about reprints for sets 1 and 2. Nothing's confirmed at this point. But it is so nice to be able to go to my LGS and buy a pack if I want to.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
There is no, oh man, you're out again. When are you going to get some? Not for a month. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I can't. I've gone into Target and I've seen packs. First time ever I did that was in January.
It's straight nuts, man.
Yeah.
Like there was a point, and I can speak to this because I spent a lot of time at our LGS, like almost way too much. I know I have an unhealthy obsession with being at my LGS. Yes. Which, by the way, shout out to Meeple City. We love you guys. But no, like I spent a lot of time in there, and there was a point within even the last 2 weeks where he had 16 boxes of set 2.
It's pretty sweet.
16. We're not talking day 1 here.
Yeah.
We're talking literally.
the wave.
Yeah. We're literally talking like within the last 2 weeks, he had it and then sold like 80% of it.
Yeah.
Which was great. Good for him.
Well, you can't expect a game to grow without people having the cards in their hands.
Yep.
And it's like...
And they finally did it.
It's what we cried for with set 2's initial release and set 1 before set 2's release. Like, we were just begging, like, please get this card in people's hands. But, you know, you had scalper issues at big box stores, and there weren't enough waves quickly in all of September. And it's like the game is new. You know, we're dealing with issues, but the stock availability has been such a bright spot for 2024 so far. And it's something that has been eye-opening of like, this game can actually make it.
Yeah,
I've
it will survive.
Kind of on an unrelated note, what's very encouraging to me is like the Lorcana Lessons videos we have on the channel that are like help you learn how to play and stuff. Those videos are evergreen videos. They're intended to be videos that can be watched for years to come as long as there's no major rule changes. You know?
And now we've got to add one for freaking locations.
I guess. The thing is, I check those frequently to see their views, just to see like how many views did it get in the last 30 days? You know, like how many people checked out how to build a deck in the last 30 days? And recently, in this past 28 days, there's been just as many views on that video as there was in the previous 2 months combined.
Yep.
So it's very promising. That means it's getting on new eyes. It's getting new people trying it out, which I commend Ravensburger for the increased print wave, for listening to the community. It seems like a pretty quick answer turnaround.
Oh, yeah.
From how things were.
Especially when you consider that the game only came out last
year.
Yeah, last August.
We're still in that, you know, we just sprouted as a community in a game. Like, we've reached the sun, and now it's time to get some business done and grow.
Yeah.
It's still young and early, and it's tender, and it has to be nurtured, and it has to be, like, really cared for.
Unless we're talking
constantly.
about bamboo.
Metaphor because it grows fast?
No, because it takes a really long time, at least initially, to sprout up. But once it does finally sprout, it literally takes 24 hours for a full stock to be there.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'd love full stock in 24 hours.
Boom! 24-hour stock right there.
All right. Pun fully intended. You know, that's pretty sweet. Stock of cards, that's pretty sweet.
Hey, check out Meeple City. They got a bunch of singles of Lorcana, and they still
they're on TCG Player now.
They
too.
are.
That's good. That's very good.
Yes.
All
Go
right.
and check them out.
That leads us to our first little break here. We're going to let you hear from our sponsor, Meeple City Games, and we will talk about competitive/casual play right after this.
See you in a sec. This episode is also sponsored by Meeple City Games. Looking for a local game store in your 4 states area of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma? Meeple City Games is the place for you. Stocking TCGs such as Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, One Piece, and Lorcana, Meeple City Games is your one-stop shop for all your TCG needs. Check out the link in the description below to check out their location. Meeple City Games. Come join the fun. Thanks again, Meeple City. And now we got to talk about some stuff.
Yeah, so the topic of right now that this little first topic after the break is going to be competitive preparation. And I think something that we can bring to the table, because we're not super competitive players.
Yeah, not
Like, as in,
typically.
we don't go to tournaments all the time.
No.
We don't go to organized play tournaments. We don't, even in the past games, like that was like an event for us.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like we were grinding the tournament scene.
It was mostly just like okay, we have time. We've got some preparation.
Yeah.
We've got a deck that we think is going to do well.
Yeah.
Let's go to a tournament.
Yeah. And most of the time, I will say, we do all right.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
make the top cut unless you misplay horribly like me.
Magic cylinders, baby.
Yeah. That's a terrible story. Oh my gosh. What a traumatic experience. I'll tell my kid about that.
I'm going to tell your kid about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh, man.
I had
Magic cylinders
flashbacks.
forever, baby.
I'm hearing helicopters right now. Oh god, PTSD. Oh gosh. Okay.
Anyway.
I gotta hone in. We don't do competitive tournaments frequently.
Yeah, we don't.
Because we have more fun in the casual scene, and competitive, like I said, is like let's do a thing, you know. And we make a trip out of it. We make a good memory out of it.
It's an event typically. We really like to be a part of the community because that's something that we enjoy.
Yeah.
But there is a time and place for competitiveness, and there's a time and place to just have fun.
Yeah.
And typically, our having fun is typically just friend base. We get together, just a few of us, and we just play games.
Yeah.
And that's
I feel
typically
like that's most people.
Yeah,
to be honest.
It is.
So hopefully you find that relatable. I will say, if you do have a tournament opportunity, take a shot. It's kind of like the whole worst you can say is no thing. The worst you can do is lose your games and then go have fun with a giant crowd of people who love the same thing you love.
Oh, yeah.
You might find new friends, to be honest with you. Like, I've made connections at tournaments that I'm like, you're a sweet person. I'd like to talk to you more. You want to go get Chipotle? You know, it's just,
or
it's fun.
Qdoba.
Either one. So, Tyler, you are going to a tournament. That's why we have this topic. You are currently in preparation mode, which as of the time of this show release, depending on how fast the edit turnaround is, either this event has just ended or it is beginning. And it is what?
I'm going to TCG Con in Houston.
All right. It'll be casted by Liam of the Illumiteers and Aaron, I believe.
It is. It is. And also, by the way, shout out to Liam and Aaron. Definitely look forward to seeing you guys and look forward to the crazy adventures that we might have on that during that weekend. I am looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to seeing the player profile that they put together for me. So I did an interview with Liam the other night for a player profile for this tournament.
Kind of introduce you to people who might not have seen you before, you know. If they see you at the tournament, like hey,
wait a
look
minute.
out for this guy.
Like, wait a minute. You're that guy from Ready, Set, Draw.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh, I am that guy.
And even if like information we go over today, even if this show comes out before you actually play your games, you're not the kind of player that's like, man, don't tell people I'm playing Ruby Amethyst, man. Like,
yeah, no,
you don't really care,
yeah,
you know?
I don't care.
So I'm
You'll
going to
see me coming from a mile away anyway.
I'm going to ask you some questions in an interview format, just because I want this to be more about you here. As far as competitive preparation goes, what decks have you been deciding between or testing in preparation for this tournament?
So I've been highly testing Ruby Amethyst because obviously it's like the meta-defining deck. Like it is the meta.
That's a big chunk. It's a huge chunk.
Yeah,
a disproportionately represented chunk.
Yes, very much so. And I've also allowed you, and we'll get into that later, but I've allowed you to be the second tester in all this, to be testing Amber Steel.
Yeah.
There's a slight possibility that I will, in the midst of this week, try and test Emerald Steel in the discard, because I like to laugh a little bit at the misfortune of my opponent not
More
having
likely than not,
cards
your
in my
games
hand.
will be over quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Whether from winning or losing.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Which means I get to go hang out with Liam. I get to go hang out with Liam and the
that's the
Illuminateers.
benefit of having a life that like you don't really care about the tournament grind that much. Is like even if you lose, it's not like your reputation was at stake.
Yeah.
You know, so it's okay.
It's not
Just have
like
fun.
we've ever said on this channel that we are competitive Lorcana players.
Yeah, you're not here to listen to our takes on like top meta analysis.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
that's
just not what you're here for. You're here to watch us have fun and goof off. Like
Yes, and hopefully you have fun and goof off with us when you listen. Okay, so Amber Steel, Ruby Amethyst, but I want to clarify because there are multiple versions of Ruby Amethyst. What is the variant of Ruby Amethyst that you're leaning towards?
I've been really stuck on going back and forth between the aggro and the control.
So the aggro would be like aggressive, low-cost characters, more focus on the bounce and Arthur, stuff like that. Maybe a little evasive action going on.
And that's been a lot of what I've seen as far as like, because of this tournament, I've decided to look at more meta breakdown than I typically would in a normal week.
Yeah.
And so in doing that, I saw a lot of like people playing the evasive mini at the 3-drop, which is a really good card.
Very good.
It's surprisingly really good.
Some people are teching in Goofy because he's a 3/4 evasive, so he can like counter that card.
Yeah.
And then answer that and then be kind of like scotch-free on his own.
Yeah,
So
it's
watch out for that.
Yeah, I will. There's the reason why I've shifted a lot of the deck. It's kind of, I wouldn't even say it's a mishmash. It's a happy medium between being the meta aggressive versus the meta control. They're good
It's like a bounce combo, but it has control-y features like, for those of you who may be wondering what we're talking about, it's like Lady Tremaine.
Because Lady Tremaine, I know I made the joke earlier about Tremaine being trash. We're not talking about that Tremaine.
Not that Tremaine, yes. Oh,
that
please, God, not that Tremaine.
Yeah, Emerald Tremaine, you know who you are. You're trash. The Ruby Tremaine is phenomenal.
It's great.
Like, it's an incredibly upsetting card that just absolutely ruins days, because the ability to tell your opponent, you get to choose what I get to destroy is absolutely horrible, because it's non-targeting removal.
Yeah, and it also gets around ward, stuff like that, but it puts your opponent in a pickle, or your opponent thinks they're safe just with the one character on board, and you're like, yeah, you don't have a choice actually.
Yeah.
You know? But
and then it's even funnier, because then you go into the next turn, they've played a new character, and then you shift over your own Tremaine and make them choose that same character again. You're like, but I just put it out. And like, well, you're going to put it right back there.
So I do want to focus, like, there's more than just Tremaine. There's also Be Prepared. Be Prepared's in both versions, technically. You can forego Be Prepared and go, like, all in on the aggression.
Which is not something that I thought about, because I feel like there's always a reason to look at the opponent's board and be like, all of what you have is a problem.
Yeah, it's just like, if you know you're going to be developing a big board, you have to ask yourself, like, if I play Be Prepared and I banish all my stuff, will I be able to come back from that? And sometimes Amethyst can, and sometimes it can't.
Yeah.
You know, so it's tough.
The draw support in Amethyst is bunkers. So that's probably the only reason why it typically can come back.
Yeah, it is notable that in the process of Amethyst going ham and getting a lot of lore, it uniquely does return cards back to your hand and kind of keep cards available to play and out of danger.
Creating a lot of card advantage while also gaining a lot of lore.
It's pretty cool.
You're doing what you want to do in Lorcana, which is quests.
I didn't mean for this to be a like Ruby Amethyst breakdown.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, and then Amber Steel, obviously,
more of a song synergy.
Yeah, it's a song
aggressive.
synergy. So it's a good deck.
So the next question, because you've been preparing and kind of practicing both decks, the next question I have is like, other than what decks you're playing, what kind of preparation has gone into preparing for the tournament play itself? Like, is there a mindset change? Is there, what goes into the thinking?
I have joked about when I get into tournament play that I stop being the happy-go-lucky. And no offense to those people out there, you know who you are. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being honest about myself. I become a sweaty tryhard. Like, I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
And that is not a problem.
No,
you know?
it's not. Like, because it's one thing to just play and have fun. I'm all for that. I've built many a deck in many different TCGs to just have fun. It's the whole point of the deck.
You build a lot of decks that are suboptimal because they're more interesting.
Yeah. I've built many a deck just to have fun.
And I'll say this. I'm full disclosure, guys. While you've been working on your deck lists, have I not texted you and said, Tyler, you want to take that out?
Yes.
Because I have to rein him in, folks. He wants to get too experimental.
I get very into like, okay, well, what is this good against? What is this good against? Would this be good against this? Would this be good against this? And I start thinking about the outs. And that's when the sweaty tryhard comes in, is that I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be building this deck to stop everything else, what do I really need to build?
So it really comes down to like the difference in you while preparing for a tournament. The part of the preparation is a shift in gears. And it's like, you're saying you become more focused on a singular goal rather than just having a time with the game. It's like,
now, don't get me wrong, I'm going to have fun in the moment.
Yeah.
And my whole mindset is I want to go, I want to play, I want to do well, and then I also want to make friends. And if I'm absolutely destroying somebody in front of me, it's not a good way of making friends, but I will have fun and joke around. Not at the expense of the other person until I get to know them. Then, like playing him, there's going to be much trash talk.
Yes.
And
yes, there will be.
Every time.
And, you know, it rubs me the wrong way sometimes. I'm not going to lie. But I know
you get over it very quickly.
I do get over it. I know you. I'll say this. There's one comment we made, like the whole like sweaty tryhard thing. I want to clarify for anyone who's new to TCGs, sweaty is not a literal term.
No, it's not.
It's just like you got tears, like not tears, sometimes tears.
Yeah,
you got sweat coming down your eyebrows because you're concentrating so hard. And like try hard as in like you were like everything you were doing is all in the effort to win.
Yeah.
So like I'm not talking about anybody who's literally sweating, you know, like that
and you're trying way too hard. Like that's not what we're talking about.
It's just a phrase of like, man, I am giving it my all.
Yeah.
You know, and some people get a negative reputation because it's like they're applying that attitude where that attitude is not necessary at all.
Yeah.
But this isn't a tournament. Like it's 100% necessary.
Yeah. And so when I think of sweaty tryhard, I think of Anthony when we were playing Modern Warfare 3.
It's just going ham.
When you put as many hours as that man did into a game, that's the type of mentality that I want to get when I go into a tournament. I'm like, I'm putting all the time and effort to make this like the best that I can possibly do it so that I can go in there and get 2 cases. And that's the plan.
So next question, last question for this little segment, and I want to answer this myself afterwards, but I'd love to hear your answer. What can someone expect sitting across from you in a competitive setting?
So
what kind of experience should they expect to have?
We're there to win, but we're there to also have fun. It doesn't need to be like I'm there to kill you. That's not the mentality we're going to go into with. But
violence not implied.
Violence, no. And when I say kill you, I mean kill you with kindness. Yeah. But in all seriousness, like my mentality is I'm going to win. I will win at whatever cost it takes within the confines of the rules of the game. Besides trying to get you disqualified, which would be hilarious, and that's when we laugh. But I'm not doing that
unless you legitimately think someone's cheating. Do not start calling out sleeves.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
You know, just because your sleeves have a tiny little nick on the corner.
Don't be that guy.
Come on.
Don't be that guy.
I bought the sleeves 2 weeks ago. I used them. Anyways.
Yeah, but in all fairness, like the whole point of going to this tournament and doing anything competitive wise is really just getting us into the community that we, claim to be a part of. Like it's important for exposure. Like we want you guys to
see who we are.
Yeah, we want you guys to meet us and to know who we are inside of these four walls, but also outside of these four walls, because we're pretty goofy, fun individuals that just like to play card games. And so like going out there and playing in tournaments and enjoying that aspect of gameplay is something that's important. Not just to me, but to all of us.
So fun but focused.
Yeah.
Is how you would put it. I would say I'm very similar to that. I would also say that like during the game, my mindset is I want to be very respectful of your competitive process. Like if you like to tunnel vision onto what you're doing, you don't need me asking what you're having for lunch later. That's technically a strategy to get you to like your mental state to be off. And I think that's not cool, right?
By the way, Mexican.
If I'm playing a game and I'm trying to think through my plays and someone's like, hey, did you ink that? Like you're interrupting my thought process, right? So I'm not going to interrupt you. But while we're shuffling and doing our mulligans and like between the rounds, I will cut up jokes with you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because I like to get to know the person across from me. I like to make sure they feel comfortable. I don't want them thinking that I'm going to be rule sharking them from the moment we start. I don't want them to think that they're not going to have, I don't want them to feel annoyed or like irritated that I'm the opponent they got matched up against. If anything, especially for like round one, when I have like barely begun the competitive mindset, the first opponent I have, I'm hoping we're best friends by the time that game ends. Even if I lose, I've done that at a tournament before. I lost round one, but I'm like, bro, I hope I see you again.
We don't talk about round one for me in that one tournament.
So
got in before everybody else. We were all good, and it was like they ended up getting in late. Took a loss, and I was like, yeah, I made it. I didn't take a loss. I still lost.
So an example.
Still salty about it.
Just to give a quick example of like a kind of joke I would tell. I did this last time, like at this Win-A-Box tournament we're about to discuss. Ethan, one of the guys at our local, sat across from me, and all I said was, hey, we're going to use my phone for lore tracking, and you can just tap here to go up and lore, tap here to go down. You're familiar with it, and I'll have you be player one. But if you reach 21st, I'm going to go ahead and flip the phone and I'll call a judge. Okay. It's just a lighthearted joke, and he got a giggle out of it, and we mulliganed in a happy way. It's just, and I say it very matter of fact because it's the best delivery, and that's me. And while we're playing,
I'm gonna have to use that.
Whenever my opponents play really good cards in a matchup, I'm not going to be like, all right, my turn. It's going to be, oh gosh, dang. Cogsworth, you demon. Like it's interactive.
Yeah.
I want to react, and I want to make them feel good about the play they did that makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
It's being a good sport, guy.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
It's also looking across the table and realizing, oh, I've lost.
So let's not make this a terrible memory for them because they just won. I don't want their
all be enjoyable.
Yeah, I don't want their memory of winning a tournament to be, yeah, but my opponent was a real sore loser.
Yeah.
That stinks.
What a jerk. And he was on ready, set, draw. What a
oh, gosh,
wagon.
what a reputation blow. Yeah. That guy had an RSD, and he was acting like a baby. I hope he has a YouTube channel. I'm going to bash him. Anyways, we had a tournament recently.
We did. It was a Win-A-Box tournament at
the
Meeple City.
Yeah, Meeple City hosted a Win-A-Box tournament. There was not many people in the tournament.
There weren't.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure. There was only 6 people.
So when I say I got third, I got top half cut. Yeah. Right? It's not that. Yeah. Top 8 was everybody who applied.
And unfortunately, I got 4th.
Yeah.
So because he beat me in the final round. We'll talk about that.
We don't have to go into super detail. You got 4th.
Yes.
I got 3rd. We played each other in the final round. I won in a 2-1 match.
Yep.
It was a great opportunity for you to test your deck.
Yes.
Kind of testing it because everyone there was taking it very seriously. Most people were taking it seriously.
4 out of 6 people were taking it ridiculously seriously.
And you played almost all of them.
I did play almost all of them.
I played almost all of them except for one too. Yeah. So it's
you didn't play Todd, and you didn't play. I didn't play Ethan. Yeah. So which is fine. I know what that deck does.
We had an opportunity to kind of flex the competitive muscles, and I would say it was a productive day.
Yeah.
We didn't win a ton of prizing, given the size of the group, but I had a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
And I also feel like I was rewarded for good play, and I was punished for bad play. And I feel like in a competitive setting, that's all you can hope for.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a learning moment, and I can go into the next time that I ever venture into those waters with like knowledge to look back on. Mm-hmm. So I do want to say we've kind of covered this. How do you approach competitive settings differently than casual? We've kind of covered that already. But I want to say that there is one more thing, competitive-wise. I am going to be, you've probably seen the announcements from the Glimmer gang if you follow them. I'm going to be in their Glimmer gang Gauntlet.
Heyo.
And out of respect for not quite knowing what rules they've shared, I can't talk about what ink combination I have because it's randomly assigned. And I can't talk about who I'm playing in the first round, but I do know who I'm playing in the first round.
It's going to be fun.
I'm not sure if the rule set has been announced for it, so I also can't go into that detail, but know that it is for charity. I am representing the American Cancer Society.
Hey.
And if you can donate to a GoFundMe, the community GoFundMe for that whole Glimmer Gang Gauntlet tournament. So please go if you have the means to donate and know that that money will be going towards a noble cause of any of the participants in the Glimmer Gang Gauntlet. And I am preparing probably the most difficult deck building process I've ever had for this tournament.
Oh, yeah.
It is very difficult because we're also having to speculate about a little bit of set 3 stuff right now, but
It's going to be an odd place for you.
I'm very excited because it is going to be a webcam tournament with real cards, and I'm going to get to know some new content creators that I haven't known before that are inside this tournament. Hopefully I make it farther, and hopefully I can get a lot of donated money donated to that charity.
I'm just going to be real with you. You, sir, are not trash at playing this game, so
Thank you.
I think you're going to do fine.
I am nervous because
You can be nervous all you
there's a
want.
lot of people in this tournament that I'm like, they're definitely more decorated in the tournament scene than me. Some of them are definitely more casual, but they produce more content than I do.
Yeah.
And they talk about the game and probably go to locals more than I do. So I'm like, oh boy.
Do we know if Sugi is going to be in it?
He's casting the thing.
Even better.
Yeah, so he's casting one of the
Not
games.
going to watch it.
Dan and Jim from Hobbies and Happiness are also casting the games.
Nice. We like those guys. We met them.
Teddy from the Glimmer Gang is casting games.
Love you, Teddy.
Knives Nerd Corner's casting some games.
Nice.
They've released the entire production team. But some of the other content creators, there's going to be the Live Laugh Lorcana women. Rebecca from the Lorcana Luminary, she's going to be in it.
Nice.
Franz from Traverse Tavern's going to be in it. Sky, who is one of the creators of Exert.io, he's going to be in it. I'm kind of blanking on some of the other names, but
There's a bunch of them.
tons of great people are in this tournament, so I'm very excited. Anyways, let's move on to one of the last topics, the last topic.
Yep.
And it is the Lorcana League point system discussion. And I want to preface this by saying we have not been as present at locals through set 2
As we should be.
Because the population size wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I want to be very open and honest with everyone who listens because I don't want us to come across falsely as people who are the most active community builder people. Like, we're not that.
We want to be, but
it takes time and effort.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things is building a casual scene. You can't just have a tournament and everybody shows up.
Yeah.
You know?
And though there was a bigger community obviously when the game started, and because there wasn't, and we talked about this a little bit, there wasn't the product. There wasn't the product to be able to have everybody have stuff.
Yeah. A lot of stores had to get really creative with how they chose to prize stuff.
And some stores, before new management, didn't really get very creative with their ability to be able to do that stuff.
And everybody has their own struggle. You know, every business has their own strategy. They got to appeal to a customer base that's always coming to them already. They got to try to pull new people in. It's one of the hardest industries. I watched a Let's Talk Lorcana from the Illumineers last night, and I listened to a lot of this discussion from This Week in Ink with John T. and Brandon. It's been a big topic of discussion about a competitive versus casual and how you approach league play points and stuff. And I feel like at this point, like, we can talk it into the ground, and a lot of people by the time they've heard this podcast probably have heard a lot of discussion about that if they're tapped into the scene. But I want to focus on, like, okay, let's say you're someone who wants to have a local scene that thrives, and you have the time that you can devote to mentally thinking, how can I get people in the store? You know, like, how can I help my LGS be more active at getting people in?
Yep.
And how can I make sure that whenever they're there, it's a place that people want to stay and come back to? Because what I'm hearing a lot of is it starts with a good number of people and it dwindles because people don't come back. And we really don't know why, but you can just kind of like throw darts and see what sticks, you know?
I can tell you a couple of reasons why, but none of them are great. Like, typically...
Go on.
So, it kind of goes back to the same mentality of, you know, the tournament preparation of like what type of mentality are you coming in with?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people that come in with the mentality of, I'm going to dominate. Like, that is what I want to do. I spike mentality. And then you've got the other side, which is kind of the kind of a symbiotic relationship between Timmy and Johnny, where you have the guys that love deck building, and then you got the Timmys,
That's me.
and so but that relationship between all three of those different variations is not a great one. The relationship between Timmy and Johnny, solid. The relationship between Johnny and Spike, okay. The relationship between Spike and two of them combined is not great.
There's a saying in TCGs of fun is a zero-sum game and I want to have all of it. And it's like a selfish playing mentality. And that's a funny joke, but it also kind of happens a lot.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
And I'll say this. One of the most eye-opening points I heard it on Live, Laugh, Lorcana, and I heard it from Franz, from Traverse Tavern on Twitter. He and they both made the statement, you have to feed the competitive community if you want a healthy casual scene.
Yep.
Because if you don't give competitive players an outlet, they're going to go wherever they can.
Yeah.
And if the only place is a casual setting, they're going to crash the party because they're going to have fun. They need somewhere to test, and you're their newest victim. It's just
literally
the way things go.
Victim.
Yeah. And that is a very valid way to play the game, is to like just play your heart out, build the strongest deck. I know, Anthony, wouldn't you agree? You are pretty competitive and you want to win as your focus. He's nodding his head yes, guys. Yeah. Playing
Tony,
that
we need
way,
a producer camera.
Yeah, that way to play the game is a valid way to play the game. It's just, I think that those kind of players get typecast sometimes
Yeah, they do.
as negative people when they just want to express themselves through wins. And it just so happens that anytime someone gets a win, someone has to get a loss.
Yep.
And you really want to mitigate that loss and how bad that stings because someone loses enough and they leave. Full disclosure, I lost enough that one night I was like, deuces. I'm not coming back for a few days because this was not a good experience for me.
Or in this case, a while.
Like,
Yeah,
I was very discouraged.
months.
I was discouraged because those competitive players didn't have a place to go.
Yeah, and also eventually, because the game really dried up once again, back to the availability.
Yeah.
The game dried up for a little bit because there were no cards to be able to get, so they all left.
Yeah.
And so what did that leave you? Nobody.
Yeah.
Like you had like me and I think one other person would show up once in a while and like, okay, let's play a couple of games.
Yeah.
And then me and the owner of Meeple now, we sat down and started playing games. She was like, okay, well, nobody's here and we want to play. So let's play.
Let's just play.
Yeah. Let's just play a game.
So I know I'm kind of getting all over the place,
You're good.
but when you have a point system, immediately their head goes, well, how do I get points? I want to get points. And creating a healthy point system is something that looks different in different stores.
Yep.
But I think the acquisition of points is like ingrained in our brain. It's like the reason mobile games have achievements that are super easy because you see that ding, you did something, and it fuels your brain's dopamine to like, I want to do it again.
Thanks, Xbox, for ruining it for everybody.
So I just want to say there is a point system that I like, and it is John T. at the Inkwell. He manages a game store.
Yep.
And they run a point system that I'm like, that's pretty cool. So I wanted to share some of the details of this point system. And for those of you who are unaware, Lorcana League, you get points when you go to your league setting based on different criteria. And then the store uses that point system to determine who gets promos, pins, rewards at different time increments. And typically the more points you have, the better you have a chance of getting that stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's straightforward. You got this many points, you get this thing. Some stores do a raffle. Every point you get is a raffle ticket. And then we do a raffle at every time increment, and more tickets means higher odds. Other stores do other things, but I wanted to highlight this one.
I don't know if I like the raffle thought.
Well, I really like this one, though. It's not a raffle.
Okay.
It's basically, instead of best of 3, where you play 3 games and then you have to get 2 wins in that 3-game structure to get a match win, you play best of one.
Yeah, I'm
And
down for that.
Not only that, you have to play someone new each game.
Yeah, okay.
If you don't have enough people to fuel that, then of course you can change or adapt the rule to say you have to play someone new until you can't. Then you play someone new, right?
Yeah,
then you play someone similar.
Yeah.
But it's to shuffle players through other opponents. One, it gets people talking to each other.
Yeah.
It stops us from going to a table because we're comfortable with each other and then ostracizing everyone else or making them feel awkward like, I don't know those two guys and they're playing a game, so I'm not going to go talk to them.
To be fair, we are the most approachable two human beings
Come talk
in a
to us,
room.
guys.
Just talk to us.
We like it. It's fun to talk to people. Not everybody enjoys it. Respect people,
Yeah.
but if you ever see us at a place,
Come and talk to us.
Interrupt the crap out of me.
Oh, yeah. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Come say hi. But anyways, best of one, shuffling people. You can't repeat the same opponent.
Yep.
You can get a point you get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a loss, just for playing. So that gets people going.
Yep.
You get a point for bringing a new person with you. You get a point for playing a multiplayer game. So even if you want to play multiplayer, you still get points for it. But then the cool little twist that I like is there are, depending on the way the Inks identities have pushed in strategy, if you are playing a deck, for one, you get the sheet when you walk in. So like if I can post the sheet on the screen, but there's spots for like game 1, game 2, game 3 where you put win or loss on your sheet. And then there's also these reminders where at the start you say what deck you're playing and you keep the deck. And that way it marks you down for colors, and whatever colors your deck is playing, you have achievements that you can unlock. So for this example, it's like during the first chapter, Amber decks could do even miracles take a little time. Heal characters 3 times from at least 2 different sources during one game. So
Hakuna
3 different
Matata
healing occurrences.
And Rapunzel.
Yeah, just 2 different ways to heal, but heal 3 different times. You know, like or 3 different characters. Or no, heal characters 3 times. Yeah, 3 different times.
Yep.
That's something that's not like super easy to do. It's not free, but it's not like I have to build my entire deck around this. You know?
Because it does what Amber wants to do already.
I could go through, like you can pause the screen and look at the page and kind of zoom in and like really read what all these achievements are. Bottom line, they're achievable and you get a point, I think, for achieving this. But the important part is you get a maximum of 10 points a week. So let's say someone comes in and they're a spike. Like they are wanting to win, win, win. They want to get their 10 points. They want to just maximize that, and then they want to leave. They can play 5 games, probably win those 5 games, and go. And everybody who's left didn't have to play that person more than once if they didn't enjoy that kind of game experience. And both people are happy because they're still getting to play games. They're still getting to play against other people. They're not stuck with that same opponent in a whole grindy best of 3. And even if you're going to lose a game, you can still try to get an achievement like that and make it happen during the game. So that's pretty cool.
Even getting the loss, you still get the points for achieving one of the achievements.
Yeah. And some other ideas that I had that we're going to submit to our LGS, like we'll submit it to Meeple and see if they want to do it.
Laurie, here's to you.
Yeah, they're pretty receptive to feedback, so I would be surprised if they weren't open to some of these ideas.
Which that is also something that I would love to just point out. LGSs out there, we love you guys. We want you guys to be successful. We're a part of the community that wants you guys to be successful. Please, for the love of all that is good and holy in the world, just listen to your community. Like they have to. They know what they want, and but within reason.
Yeah,
like
customer's always right. It's like a dangerous saying.
Because that statement right there, as somebody who is in sales, customer's not always right. Yeah, sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah,
but
you think you want it, but you don't.
But you don't.
The World of Warcraft scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So but just listen to your community base because they know what they want, and whether or not it's right or not is semi-irrelevant. What matters is that you're actually listening to their feedback. They just want to be heard. Whether or not you do what they want you to do is irrelevant as well. It's being heard is important.
Yeah. So here are a couple of the unique point things that I'm going to suggest. I want to kind of branch off because I love multiplayer Lorcana.
Same.
I love the way it creates a social dynamic. I love how it de-stresses the value of a win, and it more stresses the value of like a good time. It's why we played Commander and Magic all the time.
Yep.
I think Commander. Personally, because multiplayer games take more time, I think a 3-player multiplayer game should get 2 points to each person. And I think a 4-player multiplayer game should give 3 points to each participant. And I don't think that's really gaming the system too much if you just come in and grind multiplayer, because you're going to take a lot of time anyways to do that. So you're in the store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like if
and
you're
you can
only
switch
giving
opponents.
Yeah, you can switch opponents. You switch the pod up. You have the same rules for matchups with singles. It's just create a unique pod.
Yeah.
Then I also want to...
That does not mean change one person in the pod. That's not what that means.
I want to add that the kits that stores get to give prizes and stuff, they come with a list of like all these Disney interactions of like, if you dress up like a Disney character, get a point.
Or if you dress in Disney stuff, get a point.
LGSs, if possible, should encourage or advertise themed nights of like, you know, maybe on this local night, you can have free play over here if you want, but you're going to get more points if you come with a deck that is centered around a movie. Or if you build, and it can be like a smaller deck. You know, you can make 40 card decks. You can play only uncommons and commons. You can play.
You're gonna play that what is it? You're playing a 40 card Snow White deck.
Yeah. Either way, you can have themed nights, and they can be multiple nights a week, but like have opportunities, because you can only earn 10 points a week regardless.
Yeah.
You can have multiple nights where you offer different ways to play the game to encourage new people. Like, I might be more willing to bring my wife to a locals night if I knew I could build her an Aladdin deck. And she could just play the Aladdin deck, and she would guarantee that every deck she plays up against in that night is all movie decks. You know, because it's going to be less intimidating. She's not having to worry about, you know, what's the optimal play here. It's like, I'm just playing my Aladdin cards, man. You know?
I'm just playing to have fun.
So bringing my wife to it would be a goal if I knew that I wasn't expecting her to like catch up on the competitive.
Yeah.
It's not like she doesn't catch up on the deck lists, you know?
It's not like she absolutely destroys us in Villainous anyway.
She's good at Villainous. So I just want to say with the point system, much respect to the LGSs who have fine-tuned it. Much respect to the LGSs who are trying. But it's not just on them. It's kind of on like...
It's on the community as well.
You also have to have a community that's engaging. So I want to focus the last point before the mailbag. The last point I have is like, what are some tips on how to make things more approachable and attractive for new players? My first tip would be having starter decks ready to go in your store that are already sleeved up, ready to play. It gives you something immediately without spending money.
And once again, shout out to Meeple for doing this. Mm-hmm. We love you guys. Thank you for making the game approachable. And also, and this is something that you don't know, only because I was there for 9 hours the other night. So it was actually talked about in a different event that they were doing earlier on in the day, not even talking about the Lorcana tournament. They were talking about just strictly like, hey, like these are all the games that we have available to play, because they have a very wide library of board games. But they were like, and also we have Lorcana starter decks that are built, that they're already ready to go. If you guys wanted to try and learn to play a new card game, that is something that you can do, and we have it readily available. Yeah. And I was like, that's genius.
It's just casually sliding in a card game.
But it was such a like an interesting way of just being like, hey, if you want to learn something new that is collectible and it is a fun thing to play, because obviously we already know Josh and Lori both love playing the game.
Yeah.
Then it allows them to be able to like kind of slowly move people towards like, hey, you should try this card game. It's Disney based, because that one word all of a sudden intrigues people. Like, oh, it's a card game that talks about Disney. I want to play that. And we're not talking about
That's the whole reason
villains.
We're here at this podcast.
Yeah,
let's be
it's
honest.
literally the whole reason why we're here.
So as far as someone who comes in the store, the easiest thing besides like having a deck ready, it's like the thing you hear in elementary school. It's be friendly. You know, like whenever someone comes in, you just say, hello, do you want to try a card game? or do you want to play Lorcana? And more importantly, once you started that game, don't turn off. You know, like it's about like if we're playing a game and we see someone new come in and they seem a little hesitant to like introduce themselves, try introducing yourself.
Yep.
You know, and if they are not receptive to you introducing yourself, you don't have to do anything more than that. Sometimes people just want to like observe fun being had to feel comfortable enough to approach the fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing, like, you know, making sure you're behaving in a way that, like, for me, I like to think I act the same when I'm playing against, like, if I get matched up against like a teenager or a kid, I'm uniquely capable of interacting with teenagers as a teacher where I'm good at like communicating with them. You know, I feel like I behave the same way if I was lining up against an adult or a child or a teenager, you know, like being fun, being inviting, making sure that like we want to encourage families to come. So it's like making sure that if a parent does bring their kid, you make both of them feel like they're equivalently valued as a partner in the game.
And,
you know?
and obviously in different ways, but still like it's still an equivalent. Like,
I'm not trying to invite the childrens to play the game. It's like, I want to make sure that we can all play together. You know, let's play a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
You know?
Like just the other day, I literally played a game with my niece. Shout out to Addie. Hi. Because I know you guys watch the show. So I played Lorcana with her the other day, and but the only two decks that I had were Ruby Amethyst and Amber Steel, and I was like,
let her go.
Yeah, I was like, you know what?
Throw some goats down.
I know you don't really like know how to play the deck, but I'm gonna give you Amber Steel. I'm gonna play this, and I'm gonna tell you exactly like directionally where you need to go.
Yeah,
like
it'll be something to be said. Lorcana is simple enough that you can give someone a very, very good deck, and it's not like the cards are more complicated.
Yeah.
They can do some more stuff, but they're pretty intuitive.
Yeah. This is not Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the best deck is the most complicated, ridiculous. Why is this happening? Why am I doing this
If
type
anything,
deck?
I would say giving someone a Madame Mim Merlin deck, it may be kind of tough for them to like
that's
maximize
a slightly
But
intimidating
either
deck.
way, though, I think once the gear switches and they see the first time they return a rabbit to their hand to play a fox, the first time they do that just because it's what they had in their hand, that's more fun than going Prince Eric, 3-drop, 4-drop. Like, it's an interactive thing that's like, don't just give people simple decks. Like, give people the interactive fun decks. You know, like the game sells itself.
Yeah.
Just get it in their hands. So it's good that you gave your niece Amber Steel.
Yeah.
That's because it's pretty sweet to play a whole new world.
Oh, yeah.
You play it and you're like, I get 7 new cards. That's awesome.
I ruined your hand.
Yeah. And she inadvertently beats you. And we said we would talk about that. We don't have the time.
We didn't.
I beat him bad.
Very bad. Third game, I cried. I cried for like 5 minutes.
And I wiped up his tears and then ate them. I'm kidding. I got to clarify that I'm kidding, folks.
But
all right, let's get to the mailbag right after our shout out to our favorite place to record, Texarkana Podcast Studio.
See you in a sec. This episode is also sponsored by Texarkana Podcast Studio. Wanting to start your very own podcast or voice web series? Well, Texarkana Podcast Studio is the place for you. Whether it's true crime, sports, murder mystery, or a fun card game you want to talk about with your friends, Texarkana Podcast Studio is here for all of your recording needs. Check out the link in the description below to schedule your first session today. Texarkana Podcast Studio, where your voice is heard.
Thank you to Texarkana Podcast Studio for hosting this podcast at a magnificent studio. If you would like to record your own podcast, reach out.
For sure.
If you are in the area, it is a wonderful place to record. So,
truth.
We have a mailbag, and we have a little bit of a handful of them because it's been a while. So we're going to start with the YouTube questions.
Hey.
We have a question from Samantha Boudreau, 6889. She says, after 2 sets, which ability, Challenger, Resist, Evasive, etc., do you think is the most impactful? Since locations are being added in set 3, do you think that there will be any new abilities this set? Or will they wait until sets 4 or 5 to add in other abilities? And I'm sure she means keywords, but That's just being like really specific with the terminology. What would you say of all of the bold keywords is the most impactful to the game?
Currently?
Yeah,
or
sure.
like
let's go
future
current.
wise. Okay. So currently probably the most impactful I'm gonna do two because they're both
pick one, take a stance.
Because they're equally impactful in what is currently the meta. Like
okay, go ahead.
So the two most impactful terms right now is resist and evasive. Like evasive gets around a lot.
Yeah.
And there's never been a good answer for an evasive character. Unless you're playing more evasives.
Yeah.
But that's the only way you get around it. And then I've seen decks that are like, okay, I'm going to play around the evasive mechanic by putting a whole bunch of rush characters in and then putting in Peter Pan's Shadow. Yeah. Because Peter Pan's Shadow says
very good.
It's such
all
a
rush
great card.
Get evasive.
It's so good.
It's a cool tech card.
It's a great tech card. And shout out to Todd for showing me that. Like I was terrified. Literally I was shaking in my boots.
I think my answer to this question would be evasive. But it's a little unfair because evasive to me is the best keyword that gets very high population of representation in sets. It is a card that if you put it on a card, it immediately changes the way you feel about it.
Yep.
If you see Ray, you from Shreveport. If you see Ray,
you from Shreveport,
a 5-cost inkable 3/3 with 3 lore, you're like, I mean, it's cool. Give it bodyguard. I mean, if Question's bodyguard's pretty cool, I guess. Give it resist. You're like, that's annoying.
Yeah.
But give it evasive, you've got to have an answer for it.
Yep.
You have to. Because if you don't have some kind of damage effect, there's just nothing you can do.
Because he's taking you to the bayou if you're not careful.
You have to have a strong answer. But like I said, it's unfair because if I was to say like what keyword throwing it on a card immediately makes it nuts to me, it's always ward. You just throw ward on a card and it's like, dang. Cogsworth.
Thanks, Cogsworth.
Yeah, Cogsworth gives other stuff resist, but I made a complete blunder whenever I was playing in my first match in that Winnabox tournament. I was like calculating in my head. I was like, all right, I've got to play characters this turn so that I have enough characters for Strength of a Raging Fire next turn. I can't afford to play my removal now because none of my removal is good enough. I need to Strength of a Raging Fire for 5 next turn against Cogsworth.
You can't.
And you can't. He has ward. And I saw it. I pointed the Strength of a Raging Fire at Cogsworth, and he went, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I definitely lose. I definitely lose. Because if Cogsworth had resist more, I can adjust for that. But ward just says no. Ward is like evasive, but it tells me the fact that ward's not on all these cards like evasive is, it tells me that ward is like...
Ward is more important.
Ward's more important.
Yeah.
If you give a
way more
location
devastating ability.
ward, then all of a
gosh.
sudden steel is like, well, I can't use Rise of the Titans against that. I'm gonna have to challenge it now.
You also can't use you can't use
bodyguards.
You also can't use Along Comes Zeus.
Oh yeah. Damage stuff can't target it. Yeah,
it can't do nothing.
It'd be nuts, right? But as far as like impactful, if she means like on a card, I think ward.
Yeah.
If she means like in the game as a whole, I would argue evasive. But resist is like, resist came in set 2 and was like, yo, but check this out.
Yeah.
And it changed.
Watch me drop my new mixtape.
Yeah, Tinkerbell was so good in set 1.
Set 1.
And then all of a sudden set 2 was like, yeah, but I have resist 1 or I have resist 2. Like Hercules with resist 2, even though it's a 6/3, total different card. Resist 2 makes it nuts.
Yeah.
Tiana with resist 2, doesn't matter if it's a 1/4. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's so good. Not as good as Ward though to me.
No.
I could be wrong. But I'm also me, so.
So you're also wrong. There you go.
All right, next question.
Yeah,
Tyler.
next question. So the next question comes from @Austin. What is it?
Ostendicus.
Ostendicus 2765. He asks, how do you think locations will impact the tempo of most decks and or game length? And do you suspect that some inks will interact better with locations because of this? And the answer is yes.
Blanket, I think it's pretty clear that ruby interacts better with locations positively than most colors. And steel
Besides
interacts.
steel.
Yeah, steel interacts most negatively with locations.
Unless we're talking about map to the map
that's
to,
positive.
Yeah, the map to Treasure Planet.
But as far as like, do we think that locations will impact the tempo of most decks? Like, are all decks going to be like, well, that's a better tempo play? It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, because of what locations do inherently.
They can gain you lore, but they sometimes don't. They just give you cool abilities. Like,
yeah. So it really kind of depends on the type of gameplay that you're looking for in a deck. Like it's going to be very situationally based, and there's no real like definitive answer until we see the rest of the set.
Yeah, this is a question we have to circle back to kind of to fully answer. As the resident tempo guy, I'd say that locations almost all of the time are a terrible tempo play because none of them have had like significant lore amounts that they're going to threaten you get on your next turn.
Yeah.
So in order for a tempo play to be, or in order for a location to be a good tempo play, it has to have something like an on-play effect that gives you a benefit the moment you play it and makes your opponent go, dang, or it has to have a super cheap move cost and make it where characters moving there is a problem, which typically with game balance, they're not going to do because moving characters there, if it's so good, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
So I am a little
Unless you
concerned.
have Voyage.
Yeah, unless you have Voyage. I'm a little concerned that locations won't be good enough tempo to just find their way in all decks, but that doesn't mean they're pointless.
Yeah, I
think that
I think you're right about that.
I think they will affect game length because
I think it'll shorten the game.
I think it'll shorten the game more often than not, just because they are another card that forces you to do something with your characters.
Yep.
You're either going to have to challenge their locations or you play your location and it speeds up the lore clock of the game. Yes, characters can quest and they also are lore clocks, but they can be protected with bodyguards and slowed down. They can be given They can be given resist more easily and slowed down.
Can't protect location with bodyguards now, can you?
Yeah. So it's tough to say this fully, but I hope you feel like we've answered your question enough to like you feel heard. You know what I mean? But it's tough.
We will circle back to this
circle
in probably episode 20. There's a good chance.
Honestly, good chance. Yeah. All right. The next question is from Toby-san.
Toby-san.
He says, "Hey gang, now that we're 2 sets in, do you think there are any viable mono-colored decks right now? I've been tinkering with a mono amber royalty deck and a mono amethyst bounce and replay deck lately.
So you're the problem.
I'm curious to hear if you've tried making such decks yourselves. Much love from the UK, Toby." Thank you, Toby, for your question.
And for being from the UK.
Yeah. You
already awesome.
He submitted this on the previous call out for questions.
Yeah, when
in 2023.
The episode that never came.
Yeah, we need
Sorry
to
about that.
We need to get this question answered. So, as far as the viability of monocolored decks,
I feel like we have personally had this conversation where until they find a way to make a monocolored deck be viable, and when I say viable, I do not mean like there's plenty of monocolored decks that could be viable, but there is no payoff for
you're not getting rewarded.
Yeah, you're playing a monocolored deck.
Yeah, I think you have to have 60 amethyst cards, and with the bosses on a roll, we're close.
Yeah,
you have to have 60
there,
amethyst cards that are better than every other inks combination cards you could possibly put in, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Now, for fun, I have not tried building a mono deck, but
did.
your royalty and your bounce and replay sound very fun and doable.
I did mess around with making a mono sapphire deck because I thought it was hilarious for just like a mess ton of just added ink. Like you're just constantly just
tons of ramp.
Yeah, ramp city. That's what I call that. Ramp city mono blue. And it's all right. Like this is before like major card draw.
Yeah.
So like all the colors have gotten some sort of like indirect decent card draw now. So it's like could be good, but it's still probably trash.
All right. Well,
But it'd be fun.
I have not tried it. Mono Ruby would be the one I'd try first.
Yeah, I could
But
see
I
that.
have a feeling it would just be a bunch of reckless and be prepared, and I would hate it. So I just-
reckless, be prepared, rush.
I would be, honestly, to be fair, I would be missing the Sapphire.
Dinner
because I
Bell.
love Sapphire. Yeah, Dinner Bell's sweet. But-
Yeah,
All right. Now we go to the Twitter/X question.
Twitter formerly known as
And
X.
it
or
is-
X formerly known as Twitter.
That one.
There we
It
go.
is from Chappie.
Chappie.
What's the Disney animated series IP that you want incorporated into Lorcana? I grew up watching them all and was so stoked to see them get some love this chapter because we got some DuckTales stuff
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you, Chappie.
and Tailspin.
I am so glad that you asked this question.
I'll let you hit it up, then I'll hit it up.
Okay, so let's be real. There's really only two answers here. There is Darkwing Duck, and there is I don't want to say the other one because I know for a fact you're going to go after it.
We can both say it at the same time.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Gargoyles.
Yeah, it's so
I
it's
remember getting the toys for Gargoyles.
so did I.
Sweet.
And it's such a good show. And though the latter part of the show was hit and miss, but it's still like there's such a nostalgia for it. And it the fact that they just recently, and this is more of like a overall world news type thing. They just recently created a graphic novel version of Gargoyles. That's gonna put Gargoyles back in the public eye so quickly. I'm almost more happy that they did that than putting it in too early because now they have an opportunity to build off of this graphic novel and then introduce it into the game.
I'll say what spiked my interest with Gargoyles was I saw that beast, the steel beast that looks like Gargoyles, and I was like, wait, is this?
It's preemptive. it's preemptive.
I remember
They're
when I
creating
thought
the-
that was Alice Pisani, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Another illustration from her. I'm almost positive that's the case, and if not, I will take my lashes. All right. My show that I'm super excited about, I would love to see Doug.
That's
Or,
me.
There's also Nickelodeon. Love that. So I would love to see, I mean, I say I would love
What
to
are
see
you
it,
doing,
but
funny?
Roger Klotz, Patty Mayonnaise, Skeeter, like all these. If any of you at home, you youngins, haven't seen Doug, Doug is one of the best shows
It is.
at illustrating a child's perspective on small issues that seem like huge deals. So if y'all ever remember being a kid and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get a B, or oh my gosh, I want to
Patty
ask her, I want to
mayonnaise.
ask her out, but I don't want to do it in the cafeteria. Then everyone will see it. Like Doug has a way of like magnifying these small issues, and he has these daydreams that the worst possible imaginable
Quail
thing happens to
Man.
him. Yeah, he visions himself as a superhero. It's super quirky. It seems a ways off for Lorcana to dip into that. Like that seems a ways off.
Yeah, it's a ways
That's
off.
like seeing a Lorcana that acknowledges that high school is a thing, like, or middle school is a thing. That's kind of weird.
Which brings
but-
us to another one, Recess.
Oh, Recess. Oh
Rec-
my gosh.
I
so
want a
good.
TJ Detweiler so bad.
Super
but
cool.
honorable mentions to American Dragon Jake Long and Phineas and Ferb because
My wife knows the lyrics to the entire American Dragon Jake Long intro, and it's one of the first things that she like quoted to me when we were dating, and I was like, "Are you the one?"
the answer was yes.
The answer was yes, a resounding yes. But yeah, I love you.
I literally have the words going off in my head right now. It's cool. It's hotter like a frozen sun. He's young. He's fast. He's the chosen one. People, we're not bragging. He's the American Dragon.
We're gonna get a copyright hit. if
No,
you don't
we're not
stop.
gonna go that far.
Okay. All right. Well,
Oh, and Kim Possible. That's the last one.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
There's a lot of good Disney. Thanks,
So
Chappie, for
many-
the question.
so
Honestly,
many good IPs.
Chappie, what you should do is you should DM Tyler on Twitter, and then y'all
Don't
can just
DM
have
me.
a whole
Just DM him.
conversation.
Just DM
about
him.
this,
I'll
'cause
get back to you.
This man would talk about this for a whole other podcast if you asked him to.
That you know what? We'll create another podcast just for this.
But for me, I'm closing this one out.
That's fine.
All right. We appreciate everyone who's made it this far, even if it took multiple listens or watches. If you are on Spotify, giving us a rating is huge. I know that we've been away for a little while. We are anxiously awaiting Into the Inklings to come out. and the opportunity to get into more topics. If you have more topic ideas you would love to hear us discuss, throw us a DM on Twitter. Throw it in the YouTube comments. Tell us what you're doing at your locals. There's tons of opportunities to kind of give your feedback to the show, your opinions on what we said, our card evaluations. Let us know how you're feeling in the comments below. Please hit the subscribe button. Give us that support because it helps us know that we're doing the right thing when we see the subscribers validating, like, oh, I like this opinion enough that I'm willing to throw this subscribe button down to get it on my subscription feed. That's really rewarding to know, like, oh, wow, people like it.
I was
That's
about to
pretty
say,
sweet.
it's really rewarding to know
Okay,
you
good.
like us. Cool.
Yeah, so share it with your friends. Hopefully you find our show to be one that is shareable because it seems hopefully
Really
we're
hope
approachable. We love to get to know new people. If you couldn't tell from the whole conversation we had today, we just talked for about 2 hours about meeting new people. Anthony is exhausted while
He's ready to go
producing this
home.
show, and I am ready to give this man the break he deserves. So,
Digital Me, take us out. Thanks again, guys, for listening to Ready Set Live. If you could, like and share the content and subscribe to the channel, as well as hitting that notification bell for updates on when we post new content. Don't forget to leave a comment as we check for any questions that you guys might have, as well as things to add to our mailbag portion of the podcast. And who knows, maybe your question will be answered in the next episode. And thanks again to Texarkana Podcast Studio for their contribution in making this episode possible. As always, this is the crew from Ready Set Draw, ending our turn.